Hello and welcome. It's the Creecast back for round one. Footy's back for Port Adelaide fans now. We're finally able to talk about some footy action rather than just talking about what we think might happen. We have a bit of an idea about how we're looking on the field and all that fun stuff. Jamie is on the line as per usual now, which is wonderful to say that it's just a normal thing now. How's it going, buddy? You recovered from the heat yet?
Yeah, I'm getting there. Yeah, a lot of water over the last 48 hours, but yeah, no, good day, Dave.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. Happy to be chatting Port specifically this week.
And as we kind of discussed last week, a pretty comfortable premiership points in the bag to kick off the season. Certainly plenty of talking points, as you know. It's always fun with a Port game. It's never, even if it's a boring game, it's never boring in the analysis of it. Like the post game dissection is always going to provide something, especially when you get involved in the Twitter discourse. So it's a
Oh
been
yeah, and
it's
didn't
been
it unravel?
it's incredible sometimes. I love
Yeah,
this fan base so much, even though it's yeah, it's fun. Um
tumultuous. Yeah.
yeah. But
I
I guess
just on a personal
mhm,
level, not even specifically to do with football, it's just one of those things in life where you predict something to happen that may annoy you. And then even when it does happen, you're still annoyed because you
yeah.
predicted that it would happen and that you would get annoyed with it. And that's exactly what happened with Twitter on Sunday night and the days since. Yeah, and we kind of alluded to it in our last show where yeah, fans expect one thing and then but if it's, slightly below expectations, then they're still not going to be happy, although it's round one and anything can happen, as I've mentioned a couple of times now.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it was fun. Yeah, some of the conversation was a bit mind numbing, but
Yeah.
we do it for the love of footy at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean that's what I always think. Even there's some of the interesting characters out there that you really would never see eye to eye to with most of the time. But it's just like they're still Port fans, and they've in their own warped way they're caring about the team. It's just they're not going about it a very fun way. But the game itself, and it's interesting that you're bringing up the how predictable it is because um, I actually I the performance wasn't really inspiring in the sense of this team's just firing on all cylinders. But once I looked back at it like a day later and had some sleep and was chatting with my buddy that was visiting, and not that he watched it, but he was just like, "Oh, saw you won comfortably." Like his just very basic knowledge of the AFL footy was like, "Oh, you smoked." I think he said you smoked him. And I was just like, could have been much worse as well for him, but
Try and tell that to the brigade back on.
I said, yeah, no, it was comfortable though, and we actually said like I think I said 40 to 60 points, something like that. We kind of settled on considering the weather and some of those factors that were involved, and it being round one and West Coast playing a brand of footy that while I said in a couple of conversations with people that are actually being civil, that it was kind of reminded me of a Premier League game between a top four and bottom five team. Just West Coast came in with a clear game plan that they knew they were going to be generally outclassed, but they could, with a bit of run and energy in the contest and around the stoppage, and just try to make a few things work. Harley Reid started well and kind of faded off, but as just the heat and just his first game as well. They played a style that was. And you mentioned it as well. Kind of try to keep us to kicks that were a little bit more difficult, which as it was proven, it was a little difficult at times. And they tried to just when they could get possession, get past our kind of high press and try to get a few opportunities out the back when they could get us on the counter. But overall, obviously, scoring shots were 40 to 20, with the score being 16 goals 24, and I think an AFL era record. I meant to go through and see what our. I'm sure there was some of the highest scores in the past
Someone,
era.
you mean SANFL? Is that where
Yes,
you're
yeah,
going?
yeah.
Yeah, I think someone commented either on one of the social media outlets that we do have a higher behind record in the
Hmm.
SANFL.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so while not
I
ideal,
yeah.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, it was I look at it kind of again. I'm making a soccer comparison, but I look at our mutual love, Liverpool in the Premier League. Darwin Nunez has been a little maligned. I think he's finally won a lot more over the last six
Yeah,
months. But
absolutely.
there was a time there where he wasn't scoring much, but he was always in positions to get
Assisting.
opportunities, and he was getting assists, or he was blasting them just wide of the post, or hitting that. I think he got a Premier League record in a game because he hit the woodwork like 5 times, and people are frustrated and like, what do you know? But
That's not actually easy to do. So.
yeah, exactly. They do crossbar challenges, right? But what the more calm and collected people that were thinking about it outside of just the initial frustration in the game, they said he's the reason you're frustrated with him is because he's constantly in there, constantly making opportunities. There are guys on the team that sometimes you don't hear it. You just forget they're on the field for 45 minutes. And so the comparison being, it's really, really frustrating that we can't kick straight. And there's discussions about what we should be doing in goal kicking. And I know Twitter was, I think, Jay Schultz had about 50 job offers
He gets
from.
a good run
He
in
does,
games
yeah.
like
And
this.
and look, fair
He
enough
gets
too.
great
And
engagement.
nothing against him because he does do a lot. He's very, very much a proponent for the art of goal kicking and
Goal kicking, and objectively one of the best
yeah.
set shot goal kickers that the AFL has seen in the modern era.
Mm-hmm. And so, I have nothing against the idea of if they did end up at Port, giving a few lessons out, I wouldn't be against it. But I did look at it and also go, the overall game style, like we could have won by 100 points, and it's frustrating not to. But I'd much rather be talking about an issue of inaccuracy in a game that we won by 50 points than talking about how we just struggled to get it. Like maybe we won by 30 points and the scoring opportunities, the inside 50s, all those those other statistical metrics that we completely dominated. I think we had like 140 disposals to 60 odd in the corridor, like all these areas of the game that we want to be playing well. We were playing. We didn't finish well, but we still won comfortably. So I'm frustrated with it. I hope that, because the worry is that when it comes down to the crunch time of the season, if we haven't improved that aspect, but then you look around, there was half the teams that won this week were borderline, were like less than 50%, like as far as their goal kicking accuracy versus their points. So my overall thing with that extended rant, not really a rant, just waffling, is that I'm pretty happy with it overall. Really, with the performance, considering the heat as well, as we touched on to start off with, and you would have a better, I guess, on the ground feel for what it was like. But I heard from just a few comments on Twitter was that it was brutally hot, like one of the hottest games they've
Yeah,
experienced.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some people, as we found out on Twitter, it may not have been the hottest game that they've ever attended. But 100%, like the only reason I took my scarf and my family were the same was purely and simply to hold it up to
Mm-hmm.
never tear us apart. As soon as that was over, we put it on the seats next to us. Luckily enough, we had space to spread out
Mm-hmm.
where we sit, but we're in the sun from 5 minutes into the first quarter for the rest of the game. I put sunscreen on twice, and I mean, I'm of the pale variety of life,
Mm-hmm.
so
Kindred spirit
sunscreen
here.
is
Yeah.
in the back pocket at the best of times. But yeah, it was honestly the hottest game of football I've ever spectated, and I mean, no real surprise with the earliest start to an AFL season that we've had. So yeah, and this was 30 degrees. I think Kelly Underwood kept saying on the telecast, but again, that's her thermometer
Mm-hmm.
showing that it was probably realistically a little bit hotter than that again in some parts in the shade, to then go and think that you're playing an elite level game of AFL in the middle. Like, I've played games of cricket at a similar temperature, and it's tough work even when you're, standing around for 40 to 80 overs in the field, let alone running at full pelt for most of 120 minutes of professional football. But I guess, like, it all boils down to what are your expectations coming into round one of an AFL season? And I guess, yeah, sure, there's that large group of supporters who choose to put a finer microscope on everything Port Adelaide because they
Mm-hmm.
are frustrated with where the club's at and what their wants are for the club. And although that we've heard, perfection isn't the expectation, it kind of seems in some regards it is. Like if you're jumping on social media and complaining because, oh, we missed a few kicks, you're still probably going pretty well,
Mm.
considering that we could have absolutely wiped the 24 behinds, the 24 scoring shots that led to behinds off of our scoring tally and still won the game.
Mm.
So look, my expectations heading into the game, and I was a little bit more conservative in my prediction than you were, although
Mm.
yours was an apt prediction in that 2 to 2.5 goals extra a quarter. Excuse me, theory. But 40 to 50 points was realistically all I expected because this is the first game that we've actually put our game plan into practice against a real opponent. And it's probably one of the better teams that West Coast have listed in the last 2 years.
Mm.
On top of the fact that they want to start their season off well. They're coming up against a lot of pressure and they do have that experience. I think there's still 10 premiership players in their team. And although they're not at the peak of their powers and the likes of Andrew Gaff, he ended up getting subbed off because he had quite a very poor game.
Four disposals.
Um,
Yeah.
Even from an average AFL footballer's perspective,
Mm.
their leadership on field counts for a lot more than the average punter in the stands gives it credit for.
Mm.
So look, and I'm glad that someone else brought it up in your Twitter dealings on Sunday about the fact that it was quite clear from very early on that what West Coast wanted to do was as soon as we gained possession of the ball, they were going to get their wings and center line to push back as hard as they could to flood our forward line.
Mm.
Obviously, our forward line, in our opinions, is our best line, and there's a lot of firepower up there. So you can kind of understand why a team like West Coast would park the bus
Mm.
in their defensive line, because although their defensive line is quite experienced, and in my opinion, probably their best line at the moment, as we spoke about last week, you just know that they're going to have to weather a lot of inside 50s, and ultimately that's what they did. And I thought it was kind of smart on their behalf, because they're forcing us to kick from low percentage spots on the ground.
Mm.
And in the end, a low percentage shot netted a low percentage return. Now, that doesn't absolve everyone from that fact. Like, there were still some genuine goal kicking opportunities that I was pretty disappointed didn't get captured,
Mm.
such as Todd Marshall in the second quarter. I think he got two set shots in quick succession and made the opposite decision to what he should have on both occasions. So he went
Yeah.
for the snap the first time around on what, a 40-degree angle, uh, and then on the tighter angle he went for the set shot. Obviously,
Drop
that
home.
played
Yeah.
around in his head a little bit.
Mm.
Charlie Dixon takes a fantastic mark at the top of the goal square in the last quarter, goes to play on and kicks it off the side of the boot.
Mm.
Rioli in the same quarter got the ball in a similar position, went the Hollywood turnaround and off the outside of the boot and kicked it behind as well. So there are some things where you go, well, hang on, come on, you're kind of playing around a little bit. But going back to my original point, like, what do you expect us to play the perfect game in round one? Or do
Mm.
you expect us to shake the rust off a little bit, get into our work, and overall play a more dominant game? And in my opinion, overall, we played a more dominant game from go to woe, really. West Coast, obviously, their best quarter was probably the first quarter, most competitive, which is no surprise either. This is professional football. And uh, in that regard, I was fairly satisfied
Mm.
overall when you consider that the game isn't just did we kick more goals than we did behinds.
Mm.
And as an extension of that, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I do lean to the apologist side of life,
Mm.
partly because it's good for your mental
It
health.
is. Yeah.
um, but as well as that, I firmly believe that goal kicking is an epidemic across the whole competition. Like, we're not alone. A lot of Port
Mm.
supporters obviously because they go for Port, so they watch Port Adelaide games, and a theme that generally comes up is that we kick more behinds than goals, and it costs us so many games. Apparently, although we're one of the more winningest teams of the last 4 seasons,
Mm-hmm.
4 seasons in one round. But it is objectively an epidemic across the whole competition. We heard all year last year about Ben Mackay's kicking and how
Mm-hmm.
they denied a goal kicking coach in Matthew Lloyd. Like we're not exclusive in that regard. Although, sure, I would have liked a bit more party time and a bit more stats on the goal side of the ledger.
Mm-hmm.
But I was happy. I was happy enough with what I saw, knowing that there's still a lot of room for improvement, which could be quite scary if we put it all together.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought it up about the wider league, because I did actually have it in my notes as well, that we do this thing as fans, and it's totally, I totally get it. I do it, like, where that's the natural fan thing to do, is your brain is kind of, focused on your own team, and everything that's happening to you is worse than what's happening to everyone else. But when you
Yeah.
stand back and actually look at it, you calm down a little bit. You go, yeah, the whole league. Because what Max King at St Kilda, I remember him being
Yeah.
very, very maligned for a while and getting a fair bit of pressure on him. It's either, it seems like sometimes it's Kerno and sometimes it's more often Mackay, as you said. Um, it's Harry Mackay, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah,
I
it's
think I said Ben Mackay.
you did, and that's what I was trying to. I was like at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, my brain's doing a little
And the
noodle.
critics
It's
will
like,
be going like, "I see you don't know what you're fucking talking about." It is Harry
exactly,
Mackay, my mistake.
and 50% of the time with me, it's true. But yeah, but
They're
yeah,
the same person though.
yeah,
I'll just add that.
yeah. There is the thing that they haven't played against each other yet. Like 7 years in now, I think. Yeah, there is
A
all that.
lot.
So, yeah. So maybe we do know what we're talking about. Suck it, Twitter. Um, but yeah, it is, and that's my thing was like, looking at it from that. Obviously, yeah, the wider league does have an issue as well. It's not just us, and then everyone keeps going goal kicking coaches. But as you said, Lloyd denied, and it's just like people like argue about when we got fined and lost 100,000 last year or whatever it was with the concussion, and
Concussion, yeah.
suddenly they're all soft cap experts. But then now we've all forgotten that the soft cap exists still, and suddenly we can just go out and hire, and teams can hire specialty coaches, and it's just like if you look at what the AFL's had to do since COVID and some of these reductions, it's like it's not that easy. Now, what the actual inner reasons as to why the team doesn't make a decision to hire Jay Shields, because again,
I
Twitter
think
was,
ego
yeah.
does play a part.
Mm-hmm.
They would deny it, but I think ego does play a part.
Oh yeah.
It would have to do.
It's every aspect of life, actually. When it boils down to it, if you find out the stories behind any industry, like living in LA, like the Hollywood industry is just filled with dumb decisions made on ego sometimes. So, um, but I guess my thing with the performance was, like, I looked at it and was like, I was a lot happier with their performance than I was in the same game against West Coast last year, where West Coast were already really starting to fall apart.
Yeah,
And we
that's a
really
good
didn't
point.
take an opportunities to have a percentage builder last year against them. This year, again, it's only a 10-point more win, but the overall performance itself and how well we dominated, and again, the conditions are a factor. As much as people, want to do the copium memes on Twitter, it's just like the heat was a factor, and
People who
that's
aren't on Twitter are probably going to be like, "Why do you guys keep talking about Twitter?"
look, it does get your brain working, because even the ones that come at you with opinions that you absolutely disagree with, it does make you think about it, though, which I do appreciate. You can
Yeah,
be,
absolutely. More than
yeah,
happy to have a debate with
yeah.
people.
But yeah,
It's yeah.
at the end of the day, the performance was, I was pretty happy with it once I sat back and got away from. It wasn't the most exciting game, not one that's built for throwing on. You're not going to watch it like you did the Melbourne game last year. It was a cracker in the rain, and I watched that replay 2 or 3 times that week. This one I haven't even got to watching the replay yet,
Really.
because I've obviously had a busy weekend. But and
Mm.
there was, I think, what got missed in that was some of the good performances as well. Like, I was really impressed. Like, yeah, it sucks that Dixon actually had a good start to the game and made a couple of dumb decisions at times, but was really impressed
He
with
had a
how
great start to the game.
yeah. And when you're forward at 34, he's getting 3 goals in a quarter and a half, and then he could have had about a bag of 6 if he wanted, but then but then we have Ivan Soldo pop up, in his debut game, and obviously he had a really nice game anyway, outside of the goal kicking, but having your ruckman pop up with 2 when he's going down forward a little bit, a great result. And then what I was really impressed with, again, it sucks that Finlayson and Marshall look a little bit like they've got a case of the yips, and you touched on it with Marshall. He's just probably thinking through it the wrong way in each situation. But we've got
He's probably
Willem.
been practicing those around the corner kicks,
Mm-hmm.
and he probably just went, "Oh, cool, here's my
Yeah.
first opportunity." But for one of the most accurate kicks in the AFL, just if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. And again, that's what it is. It's like it's 90% between the ears, because he's just thinking through the situation in the wrong way in the moment, and no amount of no amount of action training is going to fix that. That's your mentality to how you're attacking each individual situation on the field, which is just comes down to the intangibles that are within yourself, mentally. So, and he'll figure it out. He's always been a bit of a confidence player, and we've just got to figure that out rather than the technique stuff will still hopefully figure itself out. But then the guys like Willem Drew popping up with a couple of goals, Horn Francis, like
In a different position too.
yeah, and there was some good. There was actually some, as much as people haven't talked about it, there was some good examples of some really good set shot kicking within the obviously
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Horn
It's
Francis had a beautiful
it's
kick.
the opposite side of the coin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Soldo looked really really collected when it came to the set shot as well, and obviously we'll get to it later. But Kane Farrell's, I said to you off air, his action is just aesthetically pretty to watch. So and then around the
He's
field,
got
it
a
was
golf swing. I
yeah.
actually celebrated with a tee off golf swing when he kicked. I think it was his first goal, because
Yeah.
just before he kicked it, I was like, "Oh, this guy's got a golf swing." He got the
It
nine
is,
iron
isn't
out
it? Yeah,
and
that's a
just
great.
flushed it. It's just so perfect.
That is a great way of looking at it, because it is just it is like the perfect swing. You can almost, now I'm gonna hear like that perfect crisp sound of a like a driver on a
Oh yeah,
ball,
oh yeah, yeah.
like on a like on Sunday morning at Augusta. It'll just be like that's the sound I'm gonna hear when Farrell lines up from fucking 60 now. Before we get into
Well,
some
and it's something that opposition sides are going to have to still put some effort in, because yeah, you
mm,
can plug up the forward, 0 to 30, 35 meters, but it's not only Farrell either. You've got Farrell, Houston, and even Burton,
I was gonna say,
who are
yeah.
all sensational kicks of the football and can all be damaging from 50 meters out. Now, Farrell's probably always going to get one.
Mm,
You want to hope as an opposition team that he doesn't make that one count, and then as a aside, he had 2 or 3 or we have 4 shots on goal.
mm-hmm.
Um, so you want to be careful.
Yeah, and there was a few moments you could see Port kind of adjust, like, so they're locking up that closer range and making us take shots from a bit further out. And there was a few moments when we had a, I can't think of a player example, but there was a few moments of someone being 55 out and looking for that handball. And I think Burton might have taken a shot, and there was a couple of other. There was just a
Yeah.
couple of moments where you could genuinely see they were setting themselves up for that. And West Coast were kind of giving it to them as well, and obviously Farrell took advantage. But it is nice to kind of have those guys that can come from that place on the
Mm.
field, and I guess that's another thing that I was really impressed with, was the diversity in goal scoring. Obviously, a couple of the forwards didn't get on the board, but when you're getting, Kane Farrell kicking 2, Willem Drew kicking 2, Jason Horn Francis kicking 2, and your ruckman kicking 2, there's 8 goals already, and we haven't even touched the forwards yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a diversity in goal kicking, and Horn Francis had a great game beyond popping up forward with a couple of goals, but it's a good thing to have, and that's one of those things that kind of got lost in the discourse about the goal kicking, was like the positive sides of it. It's good to. It's always, criticism is always going to be the biggest thing anyway, because that is the thing that you always worry about things more than you cheer the good things that are happening. It's just
Oh, it's yeah,
human nature. But
impactful driving emotion.
yeah. Before we get into the category stuff, I wanted to touch on defensive efforts and stuff like that because we did it. Like, we've obviously mentioned Soldo already, but Radaglia and Zerk Thatcher obviously making their debuts for proper game. I saw
Yeah.
some criticism about the defense, which I get, but also I was actually kind of happy with it because like we kind of we played a high line game, I guess. Like again, I'm doing soccer comparisons a lot tonight, but Liverpool do the
They
high
would
like
probably be taking the theory from sports like soccer.
yeah, the high line thing. We really, and when you're playing a bad team, you often really press high. And if you're a good team like Liverpool or whatever team you want to make an example of, I'll use Liverpool because they're my team, and I don't want to mention the others right now because it's a tight title race and it's stressing me out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like there's plenty of examples of Liverpool's defense holding up against the best teams in the world, but then letting goals out the back against shit teams because they really press high and sometimes get a little loose. But to have double the amount of scoring shots, and a few times West Coast got out the back and got a little bit of pressure on, and I could see that there is some teething happening down on the defensive lines for us. As far as how there's a couple of times where they kind of just ran into each other's space, or and a few moments like that. But overall, I really was impressed with. I need to watch the replay. I did want to watch the replay again and didn't get to it. So you have watched it. I'd be interested to see you having him probably going to explain more what you thought of what you saw. Because Zerk Thatcher is just one that I didn't watch. I didn't notice enough on the live watching because you're just watching different things, and you were at the game as well. You might have seen a few things as well. But I was reasonably happy with Radaglia anyway. He popped up a lot in that high line, cutting off the kind of taking those marks across midfield there as a defensive line and trying to reset attacks, and looks an imposing figure out there as well, which is always nice. You just want to see your defense kind of look threatening as well. So any thoughts having watched the replay as well as being at the ground, and just your general, I'm not saying there's definitely a lot of room for improvement with that defensive line, but I also wasn't as unhappy with it as some
No,
have
no.
mentioned.
I mean, yeah, look, at the end of the day, we conceded 10 goals. I thought West Coast transition was quite good on some occasions.
Mm-hmm.
They kicked 3 goals in the first and 3 goals in the last, and a couple in the middle quarters. If you look at the average losing scores across the weekend, it is about that 10-goal mark. So, again, have your opinions about how good or bad West Coast are, but it's probably, par for the course. From our defensive point of view, look, I thought Zerk Thatcher had an okay game. He tried to get in a lot of good positions from an attacking point of view, and got his hand into a few contests, aerial contests, should I say? But yeah, he had an okay game. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't fantastic. It was somewhere in the middle, in my opinion, and better for the run, being his first game with the club.
Mm-hmm.
For Radaglia, I was actually, because he was my kind of who I was looking forward to seeing when we chatted about that last week, and early days, I was a little bit, thought he started a bit slow, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to get into the game and get himself into the right positions. But thought quarter by quarter, he actually got better. And then in the last quarter, I think was his best quarter of the game. And second half as a whole was his best half of the game. He warmed into the position, his positioning, and just his defense into attack. Like you said, he took a few intercept marks, and I think more of those came in the second half once he'd warmed into the game. So yeah, by the end of the game, I was a lot more comfortable and a lot more impressed with this game overall, and was happy that he did trend up quarter by quarter. There was one point where he took a mark on the wing half forward flank area, and I was kind of like, oh, like they haven't already pulled the lever there and kind of moved him to get into the game. But I have a feeling he might have come off the bench and I didn't see it, and that's just
Mm.
where the ball was. I'm not 100% sure on that. But at the time, I was like, yeah, he has had a bit of a slow start.
Mm.
And are they already moving him? But I don't actually think that's the case. I might have just been fearing the worst in the moment. And then, yeah, he settled down back and played the game out quite well. And yeah,
Mm.
used his body to good effect. I guess, again, about expectations and whatnot, like, what do you expect from both Radaglia and Alia in tandem? Like, do you expect them to both have identical stats each and every week, or does having Radaglia there allow Alia to play the game that we want Alia to play every
Mm.
week? And at the moment, I'm not too sure, because I don't know how our defense as a whole will work, and I don't know how they will work to best effect. We'll see that over the next coming weeks. But overall, yeah, conceded 10 goals on a dry day. We repelled a lot of attacks,
Mm.
as well as, like you said, there was some pieces of transition that got out the back of our press, which you go, oh, kind of, that was a bit too easy. Clean it up a little bit. Some of those come from some fumbles and some contests that didn't go our way, some 50-50 contests that didn't go our way. But in its entirety, Dan Houston, new to the leadership group, we had Burton down there. Farrell, I actually thought Farrell, a few defensive efforts, both at half back and on the wing. It's easy to talk about his goals, but there was a couple of just some moments where he had to kill the ball, and he did it.
Mm.
That no one really talk about. It's not really it's probably an expectation of a professional footballer in defense. But he did it. And
Yeah.
because people are a bit, oh, is he a winger? Is he a half backer? So those are a few of my observations from the game and being there. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty comfortable, and yeah, and we'll enjoy seeing them gel together in the
Mm.
next month.
Sorry, I'll cut that out. Little tickle there. I've had the when you drink for 5 days straight, just the throat gets a little bit dry after a while. Um, yeah, and it's interesting you bring up the Farrell thing too, because I did notice just his around, because he's often been that player that we love what he does with the obviously the goal kicking highlights and just that clean boot when he does get it, whether it's using it for moving the ball down the field or whatever. But sometimes his place in the side has been the one that people question when it comes to actually fitting guys in, because they're like, what else does he do? But I did notice a couple of those efforts as well where he just was getting himself involved in some of those, you know, thankless tasks as well, and overall rounded himself out to having a pretty good game, which was really good to see, because he's kind of that player that if you can marry up some of those like footy fundamentals with the highlight plays that he can provide when the opportunity arises, he could be. There's levels to his game that if he can find them, are going to be an absolute boon to our side, and we'll see his career see a massive upside as well. Because we love him, we love what he has brought, but it's so far it's been sometimes it's
Yeah,
felt like a little trick pony we can throw in there, and but obviously his game, I think he knows he's
yeah,
got it in it. It's just a lot of guys. It's just finding the confidence and settling
yeah.
into a
He's a
role, and
defender, so
yeah,
yeah, you want to
mm,
hope that he can defend when
yeah,
needed.
mm-hmm. Do the dirty work. Yeah. Any other observations from the game that you noticed on the day or anything like that before we get into our categories that will?
Just yeah, just one kind of last one, just
Mm-hmm.
about going back on our goal kicking, which, look, it is a hot topic at the moment, so we can't avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think I made the point to someone during a conversation that uh, Todd Marshall and Finlayson both kicked 0 goals 7 together,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, again, round one. There's a lot of people trying new things, shaking off a bit of rust. Finlayson probably shaking off a few doubts after the preseason,
Mm-hmm.
and positions on the ground kicking. All of that being said, they kicked 0 goals 7 between them, on top of some other hybrids who had a few shots on goal, should I say, and didn't net a goal from any of them. But that's another thing that you have to keep in mind is, sure, we'd all love our goal kicking to be perfect, but those two kicking 0 goals 7, do you really think that that's going to happen again, honestly, for the rest
Mhm.
of the year? Todd Marshall being one of the most accurate set shots in the league. And they spoke about on the telecast about Finlayson how for the amount of shots on goal he gets, his conversion leaves a lot to be desired. But I mean, out of those 4 shots on goal that he had, I think one was deep in the pocket,
Mhm.
running towards the boundary, that he had to put on his boot, or else he would have been tackled, I think. And then one was on the wrong foot. And albeit it was 20 to 25 meters out right in front, but he was running towards the right hand pocket, being a left footer, and put on his right boot. So he is kind of that type of player who sometimes will throw caution to the wind. And a part of you kind of wants you to go, oh, well, maybe keep your head a bit more and maybe look for a better option. But at the same time, he's also the player that everyone loves slapping on a highlights reel because when he does pull it off, it's sensational.
Mhm.
But by the law of averages, the two of them aren't going to kick 7 behinds between them probably ever again this season.
Mhm.
So the whole goal kicking discourse, the room for improvement discourse. I was happy to see Finlayson. He actually had a fairly decent game in my opinion, but didn't light it up. And yeah, those two forwards on top of a big bustling Charlie Dixon, who actually found some marks on the lead,
Mhm.
which was warming.
Yeah. Well, just the fact he
Yeah.
looked like he was moving okay as well, I think was
Yeah,
nice
after all
to
the
see.
chat that we've had from the club, to
Yeah.
say that, we've kept him on ice and he's not coming in 100%, but that first quarter, first half in particular, I mean, he found some space. His mitts had glue on it, and yeah, he looked fantastic. So yeah, quite happy with Finlayson's game, Marshall's game as a whole,
Mhm.
and I trust them to convert more than no, will convert better, should I say,
Yeah.
than 0 goals 7 moving forward.
Yeah.
I'll finish on that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was rusty forward line, but it's one that was very that still put up a decent score after everything. 120 points in any footy game these days is a pretty good score to put on the board. However you get it, and to know that there's a shitload of room for improvement is a good thing as well. As long as you can find it. All right, so we're gonna
Yeah.
now that I've got like a partner in crime on this podcast. We're going to try. We're going to not try. We're doing it. Going to have some categories to kind of keep track of how we're feeling. Just keep track of some awards this season. Have some fun with it. The first one being, and this one's not. This one isn't actually an award. It's just an area of the podcast that we want to kind of focus on. Just keeping track of how our players are tracking, good and bad. This is one you brought up to me. Just this kind of spot. We'll call it the spotlight, weekly spotlight. I guess is just and it's a hard one to do in week one because you do we haven't had much to spotlight and find runs of form, and as the season goes on, we'll have a little bit more of weekly blocks that we can look at players over a space of a few weeks, and how their form's going, and we'll spotlight ones that are going well, and we're really happy with how they're going. And it won't just be the highlight players, guys that are getting 25, 30 disposals like Butters and Rosie each week is just kind of what they do. But it'll be guys that are whatever role they're doing, whether if they're doing it good or bad or indifferent, we'll have a spotlight on it. And any criticism is always constructive, and then any plaudits are always obviously just we love them. So
Yeah.
I guess I'll let you kick it off with who with your week one spotlight, maybe you can just go whatever order you want. Which
Yeah.
one? Yeah,
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
I'll let you kick it
Thanks,
off.
Dave. Yeah, this was a bit of fun that I had back in my solo podcasting days. And I mean, I'm a bit of an advocate for the people who are flying under the radar.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's
Love it.
probably a segment that we I mean, me in particular, I probably prefer not to highlight the obvious ones,
Hmm.
because it's easy to get hung up on that, and they'll get spoken about ad nauseum throughout every football channel. So yeah, for hot and cold is a very simplistic term, but for my,
Hmm.
you know, good run of form player, my hot player. I've actually given it to Jackson Mead. And this is more the spotlight aspect of it. It's not to say that he's in a fantastic vein of form or he's lighting up the track or whatever. His numbers were pretty okay. They are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty, I mean, you find himself pretty low on our fantasy scoreboard from our game on the weekend. But for me, it was actually good to see, and Ken's kind of alluded to this preseason as well. It's good to see a midfielder actually playing in the midfield. And there was a few stoppages throughout the game where he looked quite comfortable, and he's done a power of work by all accounts over the off season
Mm-hmm.
to get himself into this position. And he did have a decent preseason leading into it. There's a few chains of play where he found himself involved in scoring chains or, forward entry chains where he made some right decisions. He flicked off a handball. He flicked off a well-timed kick, made some good decisions with his ball use. As well as that, he got in the guts. He did a little bit of dirty work getting the ball out and distributing it. So yeah, my spotlight is on him just purely because I'm happy to see his progression, because he's been
Mm-hmm.
thrown around a little bit and plugged some holes for us in the past. Now, look, if he's getting 13 disposals every week, playing a midfield role, I haven't looked at his minutes, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there'll probably be some room for constructive criticism and whether he is really cementing a spot in that midfield. But for me, it was just good to see a midfielder play in the midfield and show what he can do, albeit in a sample size. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how he does trend over the next month.
Yeah, I just had a look while you were chatting. He had 66% time on ground, so probably not a bad effort. Considering that time on ground is a fair bit less than guys that are getting 20
Yeah.
disposals. So, and as you said, these kind of guys are sometimes play like they're not ever going to be the primary option or anything like that. At least at this stage of his career, who knows where he's going to go. But yeah, yeah with that kind of time on ground, those guys are there to play a role, and if they're playing the role perfectly, kind of like Jed McEntee, hopefully his recovery is going well at the moment, or with the concussion knock. That was a nasty knock.
It was.
I couldn't believe how long the play went on for a bit after that. By the way, because he was not moving. But anyway,
He
but
didn't
back,
show the contest, which was
yeah.
good.
But yeah, similar to guys like McEntee last year, they came in, had to play a role. They weren't going to be your 25 disposal guys. But as you said, you're
Yeah, we
highlighting
have guys for that.
yeah, you're highlighting the guys that are playing a role within the team that sometimes aren't as appreciated. But and yeah, son of a gun as well. And so it's good to see. It is
Yeah.
nice seeing those guys come in and play
When his
well.
Magpies form over the last 12 to 18, 24 months has been quite strong,
Mm-hmm.
playing in the midfield. And albeit the jump is quite big,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's his position. And a lot of critics of our supporters of the AFL side were saying like he's not a half forward, like he
Mm-hmm.
plays midfield, and then Ken attested to that in the preseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Who
I
have you got?
for my hot one, I went with it's probably a little bit more of an obvious choice, but still not one of the. I just with having seen him, he's obviously one of the recruits that's come in. He had to probably, I think it was always his role to take anyway, but it's still a question of like how the preseason went. But thought Big Ivan Soldo, it was nice to see. It'll still be interesting to see how he goes against the proper elite ruckman, because I just don't think he's ever going to be the top tier elite ruckman in the competition. But it's the modern AFL certainly it's good to have him, but it's sometimes you just need guys that play the role, and we won the hit out count, which is not something we did much last year, and
Hmm.
he had 28 hit outs himself. He looked he looked to move around the ground really well, which was just it was sad to see the demise of Scott Lycett's career when he's just
Yeah, yeah.
lumbering around the field, struggling to move, and whereas Soldo he moves comfortably. Um, I thought he rucked man it really well. I'm really interested to see him go up against Nankervis this week.
Yeah,
It'll
yeah,
be,
as
it'll
am
be
I.
really and more of those kind of matchups. We'll get a real idea of what he does. But I thought he had just came in and played a perfect first game. Couldn't ask for much more from him. And again, I like when the ruckman can pop up, and he was strong in the marking contest down forward as well. Um, when Charlie Dixon's ending up on the ground looking in pain while he's walking away casually, it's just like, oh, okay. There's another one that likes to just clunk one with the hands in front of, hands up, and so yeah, that was just I thought just
Great mark.
yeah, when it's sometimes it's tough to come in and play your first games, and not, as we talked about the defenders a little bit,
Yeah, sure.
Zerk Thatcher and Radaglia, we got high hopes for, and we like some of the things they did, but you could definitely tell it was their first game for the club, whereas Soldo just kind of looked like one of our best
Yeah,
players
he looked the
already,
most
and
settled out of the
yeah,
three.
and I have a affinity for the number 13 as well. So just anyone that's running around that kid on is always gonna just catch my eye. It's one of those weird. It's like not like I'm superstitious at all, but I've always
To
loved that.
buck the to
Yeah, I
buck the
think it's just always been my thing.
superstition.
Like I always liked the number 13 because I wanted to be like I don't know when I was 14 I was trying to be hard. I don't know. um, but yeah, so I that was probably my positive spotlight of the week. Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was one
Well,
that
and I thought, sorry to
no, I was just
cut you
finishing
off.
off saying he's just one that I had my eye on. So yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I thought that, look, Bailey Williams is no top line ruckman in the competition, but
Mhm.
I thought A, Bailey Williams actually had a fairly decent game for West Coast, and B, he's probably has more he probably has more athletic capabilities than Soldo. So there still was a challenge to combat Williams' athletic ability
Mhm.
in comparison to Soldo, who's look, runs around the ground a lot better than Scott Larsett, like you said, but he is probably a bit more of a bash and crash.
Mhm.
So I thought the challenge was real. And at the game, I actually thought early days that Soldo, while he was getting his hands on the footy, in the ruck, he probably it seemed to me that he kind of went for a safe tap option
Mhm.
while getting two hands to it. Now I've watched the replay and some of those instances where in the moment I was like, oh, you've gone a bit safe there. It actually looked a bit more calculated from a replay point of view, like television point of view. So yeah, after rewatching it, he actually appeared to have a better game than what I thought, and I was actually already impressed with his overall game too. And then, like you said, he went forward, and yeah, if we can get a goal or two out of him every game, then it just makes our opposition's defensive woes even greater.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like and as well, like you said, it'll be interesting to see how he combats some of the more established ruckmen in the competition. But it's a great starting point for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly gets him like just bedded in and comfortable, and I think kind of already. I think he's the kind of player that fans will just love as well.
Mhm.
There was a lot of actually saying that I do remember just seeing there was a lot of people just being like, "Yeah, love this guy already" on the socials. So some good positive
Yeah,
stuff out of it,
great
which is
game.
great. So all right, so the constructive criticism side of it, I'll let you go. I'll let you kick it off as well.
Yeah. So again, we don't really have much to go on. So
Mm,
it's probably going to be a bit more of a harsher one. And look, it's pretty easy just to scroll down to the bottom of the stats and go, oh, well, who got the least? And look, more often than not, you're probably going to find your answer in that region
mm,
of the statistical ledger. But mine is Lockie Jones.
mm,
So um, I have high hopes for Lockie, obviously being an academy product and a high draft pick, being a bit of a beast and kind of has a little bit of a cult following
mm,
off the back of that and his famous mullet. Um, but yeah, I think so. I think that Lockie Jones is currently a two touch player, and by that, what I mean is that whenever you see a ground ball, um, he'll always fumble the first touch and then grab it with the second touch. And
Mm-hmm.
I think when Lockie Jones finally transitions to be a one-touch player, he is going to be very, very hard to stop because he gives the opposition a little bit of an in while currently being that two-touch player that I described. Now, putting ground ball and ground efforts to one side, he's a defender. I just thought he probably found himself in some awkward positions in comparison to going back to my comments on Kane Farrell. There was a couple of opportunities for him to kill the ball, and he didn't quite do that. So again, he probably had moments that were good,
Mm.
but overall, I just thought that. And look, fumbling, he wasn't alone in the fumbling state. We haven't really touched on fumbling today, but because
There was
there
there was
was
some there was some there was some there was
particularly the
some.
first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, even throughout the whole game,
Mm-hmm.
I think every person fumbled the ball at least once, if not twice. So look, he's not alone in that regard. But yeah, I just wanted to make the point of my belief that when it does click for him, and hopefully it does, that he starts taking the ball cleanly in general play, he's going to be quite a formidable halfback.
Mm-hmm.
But his main role is to be a defender, and yeah, I just thought he's got some opportunity for improvement with his defensive positioning and some of the opportunities to kill the ball when it's there to be nullified. And sometimes, and there was a couple of occasions where I think he got slightly out of position, and then it created a chain reaction where he got in the way of another player.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes creating like a three-player kind of mashup, which you don't want to see. Again, not alone in that regard. And
Yeah.
yeah, look, this early doors, this part of the segment is probably going to be a little bit harsh, especially in a winning team.
Mm-hmm.
But for the sake of the segment, yeah, I thought Lockie probably had the most room for improvement out of our squad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one that I had come to mind. It was only, and it was more. Wasn't going to say him because I actually just couldn't remember. But there was he was one of the the fumbles. And yeah, we hadn't touched on it, but yeah, it's just the fumbles. I think that was part of what made the game so hard to watch at times, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you even more so watching the replay. It just that's the kind of the overall vibe from the game and what people were complaining about. I think was I think the goal kicking has become the scapegoat for just an overall kind of just a performance that was
Yeah.
just a little bit all over ugly, but then we still won, so it was fine.
Because you
As
don't
I
have to
said,
put in effort to comment on goal kicking. You can
yeah,
just open your AFL app and just see it.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's lazy.
Yeah, which my pick for this then just goes against me being like don't focus on the goal kicking, but it was just the first ones that came to mind beyond because I didn't want to say anyone that played their first game for the club,
Yeah.
because
And I think it's harsh on to name a sub as well. I'll just
yeah,
put that out there.
exactly. No, that wasn't. Yeah,
So Frankie
there's
Evans gets a pass.
yeah. So I was just going to pick between the two, and I thought based on just what we know he can be when he's at his best, it's just Marshall's probably just the one that I'm just like I really want to see. It's that then it's not like it's a criticism. It's more on my spotlight's going to be on him watching how he kind of looks because I think he does have a look when he's confident. He really looks confident, just body language and everything, and he just slightly had a little bit less of what I wasn't confident when I saw him kind of holding the ball. He didn't look, and whether it's just, and it could again, we mentioned the heat a bunch, but it could have just been some guy. Like I know when it was extremely hot, I just don't enjoy doing anything. So, um, but yeah, just and as you touched on before, so we don't need to get into it too much because we really did talk about it already. But and it's not that I actually want to see him dropped at all or anything like that. It's just I just to work watching his progressions because that's what we notice when these guys are, you know, on form and kicking straight. And Todd Marshall had that incredible period, what 2 years ago, where just it didn't like you were when he took a mark, and it didn't matter if it was on the boundary or 40 out on directly in front. It didn't matter where it was. You
Hmm.
knew he was. You knew every kick was either going to be close or it was going to score probably. And there was a and that's just what we saw on the weekend was a player that looks like he's trying to work through a few things to maybe make it even more consistent, but at the moment he's in that in between stage where he's actually just making bad decisions based on, as you said, just doing the wrong thing for the other situation. Um, so that'll be, and that probably goes for, that's probably just a general forward line thing. Is it's not like I'm actually that worried about the goal kicking. It's just more the decision making in the moment as to what the right, shot style to take at any given time. Because everyone else in the field seems to, the midfielders kind of figure it out as they go, which is just they're just naturally probably maybe it's just the confidence as well, and midfielders naturally run with a bit of confidence anyway. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to watch
Yeah, yeah. Look,
how his
on the
progression
opposite
goes.
side to mine, but with Lockie being a defender
Mm,
first, Todd's a forward first, and you just want to see him seal the deal
mm.
uh,
Especially, and
a
it's and
lot.
it's and it's knowing how good he can be.
Yeah, yeah,
Same, same.
absolutely. I've always been a huge advocate for Todd
Mm,
Marshall, even at the height of his criticism, because you can kind of see parallels between him and a young Justin Westhoff who
mm,
wasn't given a lot of rope in his early days. Because for me, Todd Marshall's smarts are what contributes a lot to his game, and he's a fairly
mm.
selfless. While being a very accurate set shot kick, he is quite selfless. I think he had the ball like 5 meters out from goal, but because he was deep in the pocket, he chose to come back, and I think he kicked it to Willem Drew, who ended up converting.
That was him.
So
I thought it was Finlay's, but I'm mixing up my forward. So yeah, it might.
maybe,
No, no,
yeah. Look,
it might
I
be.
might be making that up, but I remember he kicked it to
Yeah,
someone a bit further out. But
I think you might
yeah,
actually be
like you
correct.
said,
Hmm.
he's a forward, so
Yeah.
we want to see him kicking
Um,
snags.
and that does go for Finlayson a bit, and then it even goes for while Dixon had a great start, and I'll talk about him in my votes in a bit. But it's like a general thought. It's just like all of them probably just need to maybe as just work through the what do we do in this situation kind of thing. It's not so much technique, or the technique's a part of it, but it's just a little bit of confidence and just working through the progression of what you should do based on the position on the field and stuff like that. Because yeah, I mean, I actually see the merits in the around the body depending on where you are on the field. It's just you should just set shots always. A simple drop punt is always going to go pretty well usually, unless you've completely hacked your ball drop and everything. So yeah. But overall, it's all positives. These are all guys we love, and it's positives out of the game. Overall, as I said, the more I sat back after the game finished, the more I was pretty happy with it. Actually, even in the moment, even if watching the game, I was a touch bored. Also recovering from some heavy days of enjoying California life out here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it looked like he had some fun.
yeah, too much. I said might be hearing it in my voice a little bit, but yeah. So with that concluded, and that'll be weekly. And it's actually a really fun way to kind of talk about the game as well. So I appreciate you bringing that one up. But we have categories and awards that we're going to give out this year, which is going to be fun because it's something I've always kind of wanted to do and just haven't kind of worked my way into it. But we've got three. I'm going to go through and explain them before we actually get into them. Goal of the day is pretty simple. Obviously, we're going to both nominate one, and then we're going to put the poll on Twitter. And obviously, this week I think it'll be pretty academic, but still, some people, as we've found out, Twitter is full of every opinion under the sun. So,
Yeah,
um,
everyone sees it slightly differently.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, we'll each nominate one, so we'll let one of it. We come into it with a couple in mind, and then we both nominate one because often I think it's going to be we might have the same one in mind, but we'll throw another one up there as well, just to give some. It's always interesting to find out what people enjoy in the game. So that's goal of the day, and then what we'll do for this one and the next one is we'll keep track of which one wins week to week, and then at the end of the year we'll have a goal of the year vote based on each weekly win, kind of like a rising star nomination style thing. This next one's a little bit of fun, but and for anyone listening that doesn't get involved in meme culture as much or whatever, I'll do a little bit of a visual explanation on Twitter and Instagram and everything. So if you're listening but don't see the Twitter or Instagram as much, just have a look there to see the picture I'm talking about. I'll put like maybe a link in the show notes or something as well. But the SWEENEY Award, which is the moment of the week, which anyone that understands the Hot Ones meme, where Sydney Sweeney's looking like lovingly up, gazing upon, and it's been co-opted by meme culture and Twitter and everything with just, you know, her just insert a picture that makes you happy, and they
Yeah.
use the Sydney Sweeney meme looking up at it. So this
Yeah.
one has
Looking
goals.
quite content and happy with life.
Yeah, and it just makes you kind of just, you know, the warm fuzzy feelings that when you see something that makes you happy, and that's what that meme kind of encapsulates for me. So I thought it'd be a fun way to reward something that's, because goals are always the highlights, and so we've got the goal of the day, goal of the year, but this one will go the same style. Each of us bring one in, and then we let Twitter and Instagram poll and vote on it for the Sweeney moment of the week, and then the same thing will happen at the end of the year. We'll have the award for the year, for the moment, and what it'll be. So goals are excluded from this. It can be anything, literally anything that happened on the field that day, that made us kind of just feel good, and just have a little warm fuzzy moment and look at it just like Sydney looks at the wings or whatever it was in the moment. Um, yeah, so that'll be, so yeah, goals. So it could be defensive efforts. Something can, you know, anything that could just, it could be the litless thing. It could be, it's literally anything. So it'll be open to. I'm looking forward to doing this with Jamie this year as well, because it'll be interesting to see how the different things we pick up, or maybe we pick up the same thing. But it really opens it up beyond, because goals are quite binary, and you know, you can usually find one or two for the week, and but this is going to be really open to interpretation of what we saw in the day. So I'm looking forward to that one. And the last one, before we actually get into our nominations, whatever, the last one's going to be a lot more obvious and easy. It's our Player of the Year award, which will be Player of the. We do votes every week. One being five votes through one, so 5 votes being best on ground essentially, and then through to one. I just thought 5 was a bit easier because you can get a few. Sometimes you get those players that are just on the fringe of a 3-2-1 sometimes miss out and getting a little bit applauded. So
Yeah.
you can throw a couple in at the end there,
Bit of room
and
for movement.
yeah, it would make the scoreboard interesting. And we're each going to nominate our 5, and then I'll collate them towards the end of the year, and it'll be interesting who comes out on top. Obviously, there's obvious favourites for Player of the Years. Usually, I think, in this kind of style, but it will also be interesting to see how because I will try to be a little bit less umpiry about it, but this week it was a bit difficult to ignore certain performances. But yeah, I think we'll start with goal, go to Sweeney, and then finish with our votes. And then obviously
That's how I've got it listed in my notes, so I'm happy with
perfect,
that.
perfect. We're on it. So I'll let you go first with your goal of the week nomination, and then I'll put mine up. But I think yours is going to be the one that'll probably win it. But I'll let you
Yeah. Look.
take it away with your nomination for the week.
Yeah, look, my nomination is obviously Kane Farrell's second goal. I believe that was
Yes,
the
it was
better
the
of the
second
two.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Soldo. Farrell can almost go for it from there. He launches from 65. Oh my goodness. That is beautiful to watch.
It'll be the one that probably our Port Adelaide FC social media account select. I haven't actually had a look to see if they've done that yet, but
They had.
yeah.
I did notice they had. Yeah.
Yeah, look, you can't something that good, and look, hey, I'm a big advocate for things that fly under the radar, but you can't really go apart from it. All the other goals were fairly, yeah, elementary. But yeah, that one stood out. Yeah, a big wheel up from the center square around to about 60, and just split the middle, just bang with his golf swing, as we mentioned earlier. Got the crowd up and about, because yeah, whenever he gets the ball around there, the heart rate goes up, the excitement goes up. Everyone already is cheering for a goal even before he's kicked it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't go away from that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I had obviously have my 2 written just in case that, you know, we clashed on, and I knew that that was gonna be the one that was gonna be both of ours. So, but I did find a second one in there when I was watching back just a short highlights package and just watching the goals. I picked out for just the other one to throw up for the vote. So again, check us out. It'll be on. I'll put it on Twitter and Instagram polls, and then I'll collate the results. Gives me something to do. And so just look in both socials and vote wherever you'd like. I guess some might double over for some reason, but we'll let it. It's a fan vote thing. It's fine. But my one that I picked out was the Zach Butters, his snap from about 40 out on the angle there, and I thought it was the entirety of the play was a really nice just forward line move and just one of those moments that Jason Horne-Francis getting involved with his slick hands and how quick he can be and getting the ball out, and really highlights some of the work these guys do, and just good team play.
And get out on the full, or at least handball it into the player to get it out of play. In the meantime, Butters, he's a class act.
Smarts of where they're positioning, just Horne-Francis immediately he was falling forward. It gets the handball dish out and just knows that Zach Butters is there, and then Butters sneakily, I did mean to, I should do this at some point, but I want to look, because he's one of those guys that has a natural eye for goal no matter where he is in the forward. Like if he's in the forward 50, he's going to miss a few here and there, but his ability to snap fairly truly in those situations is actually uncannily good, I feel like, just without having a good idea of actual stats. I could just be misremembering, but he seems to, if he misses, it's not by much usually. He just has a natural eye for goal.
He's a goal sneak for sure, of the highest order.
Yeah. That was kind of my nomination, but again, as you said, as we've said, it's going to be pretty academic, I think, this week for that one. We'll move on to the SWEENEY Award next. All right, so the SWEENEY Award, this is going to be a fun one, I think. I'm looking forward to it, because we literally have no idea what either of us have got here. Unlike the goal one.
No.
I'll go first in this one.
Go for it.
Let you have the Faz one. Oh, that's a
It's
just the whole idea is to. So my moment of the week was this genuinely was a moment that when it happened on the field, it's pretty normal for this player to do things like this, but just when he had the burst of pace, I'm talking about Zach Butters here, but it was when he kind of gathered the ball really swiftly, kind of just inside the square, like off halfback, and just turned on his real dash of pace.
Yes, great call.
And
great
just
pick.
On ears that have listened hard. Butters got there. Speaking of going hard, he goes hard at him. Oh. Hot knife through them with Butters. That was just brilliant.
And it went from a little bit of where it could have been a little like a contest, toward midfield off halfback. Him just
then he exploded,
gathering swiftly, and just exploded through the middle, and kicked. But then he does this thing where he's just got this uncanny ability to stop almost on a dime and just do these deft little chip kicks when he sees a target. And he kicked it to Darcy Byrne-Jones, who I think finished with a goal as well. So it was but it was just a breaking the line play that I literally was smiling when I watched it. So I thought it was just as soon as I saw it, I was like, it's the perfect SWEENEY moment of the week for me, because I was
we actually commented on his speed after he did that, because it looks like he's actually got a little bit quicker in the off season, and he just tucks the ball under and just go.
It's brilliant. So and my other thought was knocking on the wood, but that ankle looked all right in that moment. So
that's a good point. Easily forgotten. Although he started a bit slow, but he didn't take much time to get into the game. That's a good point. I completely forgot about the ankle.
All right. I'll let you have it.
No worries. So mine again with a goal, and I'm going to try not to it's easy to just pick out goal moments, but it was actually Connor Rosie's 100th goal. I don't think they announced it on the telecast. But it was our last.
I don't think they did, no.
I wonder what a pass mark is. Would it be 6 wins, 8 wins, do you think, Jared? As Rosie goes again, the captain from 55 out. It's an interesting kick. Captain Connor in the #1 salutes at Adelaide Oval.
No, they didn't, but they announced it at the game. So you'll notice that it's actually the last score and the last goal that we score, last goal and last score for the game, for us anyway. And you'll notice that after he kicks it, it was a bit of a funny goal. It was from the center square, and then it kind of rolled through a few players. It was a shank off the boot. It was a mongrel off the boot, and then it hit the ground and then rolled through the goals past a few players. And obviously that's funny in its own right. But you'll notice if you're watching that after a brief period after the goal, then the crowd kind of gets like a second win and they start cheering. That's because the ground announced that that's actually Connor Rosie's 100th goal. Now that is one aspect of it, because I mean, what a fantastic player we have in our side, and what a great game he had. But it was just good. He was one of those players who actually hit the ground running from the first minute of the game. So he started the game off fantastically well, had a fantastic game throughout, and then he capped off his and our great game by finishing our scoring, closing our scoring. That just happened to be his 100th goal, and what a fine early career he's built up, and may it continue in that fashion. So yeah, it was Connor Rosie's 100th goal for and those of you who weren't at the ground won't know that because they didn't mention it.
Yeah, it was a milestone moment, and yeah, I didn't even realize it at the time until I saw it on the Port socials later, because they didn't.
That's right. Yeah. Of course they would have done that. Yeah.
So they mentioned it, but like I said, like you said, at the time, particularly as someone watching on TV, I missed that it was that that kind of milestone moment, and perfect.
Another indicator that the commentary team weren't there. Or else they would have brought it up.
Yeah, no, they clearly went into the game with an idea to talk about Harley Reid for half of the first quarter, and that was about it. Which, like, I get it, but also just it was for the first 10 minutes, it was just like, we're watching Harley Reid and Friends, or
he did have a good first quarter. I'll give him that.
He did, but yeah, it was commentary had left a lot to be desired. I watched it, kind of turned it down after a while. Like, I turned the volume up a little bit for. Never tear us apart. Like, it was on TV over here. I didn't have to watch on the app. It was just on Fox Sports 2. And
that's great.
Yeah, it was good. So hopefully a few people in America on Saturday night after a few beers were like, "What the fuck's this?" and on. That's always fun to hear people discover the game that way. But great, that just a great first game as captain for Rosie as well. Port captains, we've had some great, like, obviously had some greats as captain over the years, but it's sometimes been a visit. Not a poison chalice, but Wanganeen didn't super enjoy it when he came in. He liked having that pressure off him. Primus came in as captain, and unfortunately did it a couple of times. And then Treadray's best time as captain was when he wasn't actually officially captain, almost sometimes. But then he started having his injury issues when he got the jersey.
Then,
so
the Cassisi era is forgotten about.
Yeah, just
not for
his fault, but
again,
and obviously Boak had a great career as captain, so it's not like it is good to see him off to a good start. I think he's going to wear that number one.
The club has had some great captains.
I think he's going to wear it incredibly well. And
he showed that quite quickly. That's what I was happy with about his overall game. Was it seemed quite apparent that he wasn't going to let captaincy get to him in any way. He was the best on ground pretty much from the first bounce. First contest.
Incredible. I'm super pleased that he's. I had my opinions about when a player should be named captain, but if there was one player that looked more than ready earlier in his career, it was Rosie. And forget that he's 24 now anyway, so he's not like he's not super young anymore, and he's getting right to that period of time. But he had a great game, and he's going to get a mention again here in a moment when we talk at a Player of the Year votes.
I'm sure.
I'll let you rattle yours off first, and you can. You can throw a brief, whatever amount of time into like why you put them in the position you did.
Look. The first few won't really need much conversation generally each week. Look, the three highest vote getters won't need much time, but I'll start off. Obviously start off with my one vote, and look, a lot of honorable mentions could go in here, especially in a 50-point win. A lot of contributors for the game, and look, it would be very easy to just go on fantasy points, filter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I did want to look into it a bit deeper, but in saying that, this guy was fairly high up overall, and then that's Miles Bergman. So I think he was in our top 5 or 6, 7 players from a statistical point of view. But when you look into it deeper, like he had a good overall game. He's playing a position that he does like. He's up there in meters gained and up there in score involvements on top of the possessions and all of that. But just thought he had a good game overall, playing in a position that he wants to play in, and again left a bit wanting with his goal kicking, but he had 3 shots on goal. So for a wingman to impact in multiple facets of the game, and then hopefully kick 1 goal, 2, if not 2 goals, 1 on a better day, or 3 goals. Yeah, I thought he was worthy of my 5th best on ground. Next one, so the 2 votes goes to Alir. Again, you could filter for statistics, and in this regard, you probably wouldn't have really noticed him, but I thought that his game was quite a quintessential Alir game. He did all he needed to do when given the opportunity and given the challenge. The things that we have grown to love about Alir, he was spoiling, killing contests. He took some fantastic intercept marks and rebounded quite well with his attack when given the opportunity and when it was smart to do that. So it goes back to my earlier point about like what kind of, how do you want the defense to operate, and by having Radicalizia there, what do you expect out of the 2? But more importantly, Radicalizia being there, would Alir would have had the same game if Radicalizia wasn't there? I'm not sure. Maybe he's good enough, but yeah, I thought he had a fantastic quintessential Alir game, and gets my 2 votes. 3 votes, Ivan Soldo, hit the ground running, impacted in the ruck fantastically well for his first game for the club. A lot of hit outs to advantage, and kicked the 2 goals. He was actually my second choice for the SWEENEY Award, just because he kicked his first goal for the club as well. But more importantly, his 2 shots were from that longer range, and it looks like he has a bit of a bowler's run up with his goal kicking, a bit Ben Brown, very long. But at the end of the day, if you're putting it through the big sticks, that's all that matters. And he was quite humble about that. In the post-match, he did a quick interview with our social media guy. 4 votes, Zach Butters. Going to see him a lot near this end of the votes. Like I said, I thought he actually started a bit slowly, but it didn't take long for him to get into the game. And it was actually my dad. He was like, "Oh, Butters hasn't really had a lot of the ball." And then I think I looked at halftime, and Rosie was the clear disposal leader, and Zach there was their number 2, with a few less possessions. And it just goes to show that he was probably doing a bit of dirty work, that while you're at the game and the ball's moving around, and there's no commentary in your ear, for some people, those kind of things can sometimes, you can kind of just quickly forget about them or not even see them. But yeah, he was clearly doing a lot, and yeah, he was the clear second best on ground for us on Sunday afternoon. And then my 5 votes go to Rosie, pretty popular choice, and again will feature quite prominently, I imagine, at this end of the votes. From the first minute he was out there, he hit the ground running and led from the front as in his first game for captain, which was warming and to be expected. Really, he's a fantastic player and should carry us through the season quite well. And he did what he needed to do. He grabbed possessions, he kicked goals, and made tackles, impacted the game. Just an overall contributor and worthy deserver. Don't know if that's a word, but he got my 5 votes.
It is now.
Anything can go in the dictionary these days.
Yeah, that's how the English language evolves, particularly as Australians, because we've got our own as well. So, yeah, no, I like that, and then like certainly the top tier of the votes are going to be very similar, but there is some differences, which is why I love that we're doing this, because it's going to be like that this year. Is like we're going to pick up on different things, and again, I think the benefit of replay might have changed mine a little bit, but I just went with what my vibes from the night, I guess you could say.
Sure.
And my one vote goes to, and I'm famously a Charlie Dixon apologist because I try to defend against the tide
Oh.
a little bit with
Me
him.
too.
But,
100%.
and I thought the way he started the game, and certainly if he continued the way he was, he could have been up in the 3 or 4 spot. But he just probably maybe dropped himself a spot with the play on in the goal square. But
Yep.
also the play on thing is sometimes players do it when they're in a situation where they could get tackled and they just happen to make it work. He just forgets that he's a lumbering truck and not much of a like didn't have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
just
It had
didn't,
already happened in the round, though.
yeah.
He obviously doesn't watch other games of football. Just go
um
back and kick it.
yeah, but 3 goals 3 in the end. I think that set shot he had after he kind of landed rough and looked like he was winded, I think he probably kicks that. Like that's one of those ones that isn't technique, it's just the fact I think he had the wind knocked out of him a little bit because it looked like he'd done his shoulder, and it was just that he was just a bit puffed on the
Yeah.
front. So but kind of set the tone early when the game was a little bit, it was a lacking in class, but we got the ball forward and he just kind of just said, I'm going to shoulder the burden here a little bit and also show us that he does have a bit to give, because there was a lot of people going into the season thinking he might be just completely done, and he's, probably not going to be fit all year. Just unfortunately that's the way it is, but I think he deserves just a vote and just a little bit of a pat on the back for
He was in
season.
contention for my one vote. I
Yeah.
thought it would have been a bit of nepotism on my behalf, putting my favorite player in the votes.
Well, yeah, but at least we got him in there somehow. So, yeah, a lot of similar thoughts between us. And my next one is one you had in your list as well. I got Ivan Soldo at number 2. Again, just when you're coming into a new club, and particularly in a position that has been one of contention in amongst Port fans and contention and stress, I guess, with how it kind of fell apart with Lysett last year, and Brintikel not working out, and then we were just still waiting for Vicentini to come up. We needed someone to come in to shoulder the mantle and be a Port Adelaide player, and he already just looks like he's very comfortable in that jersey, as we said earlier. So I don't need to say much more, as we talked about him fairly well earlier. But Soldo gets the 2. I put Horn Francis in at 3. I was just really impressed. He looked a little bit freer this, even though like his performance against Brisbane to open the year last year was really good, and obviously he set the ground alight last year, but he looks really comfortable now. I think he's had that year to settle into Port and get past all the booing and all that stuff. And I think he had 20 disposals, a couple of goals. Looks really comfortable playing up forward when he does, but then equally in midfield he
looks damaging up forward.
Yeah,
he's going to be a handful too when resting up there.
Mm-hmm. But then his running through midfield, he looked a lot like, even though last year he had a real jet speed at times when he puts the hammer down. He looked even better again to me. So just thought, he's had the off season with. It did get brought up in telecast as well.
It did, yeah.
One of the things Underwood got right. That he did go over the Red Bull centers in Santa Monica, not Colorado, but they did go to Colorado. So mixing up the things there
of course,
a bit.
yeah.
But he just looks real, like he's real comfortable, and like the next 2 that are going to get the votes that are going to be the same as yours. Are going to be the leading lights of the year, obviously, but I think Horn Francis he's just that game alone.
He's going to win some games for us this year, for sure.
That game alone tells me that he's got another step in his game this year already, and obviously he's still in those young years where he's going to be just going forward each year. I saw all I need to know that he's going to be a real handful for a lot of teams this year. And when you've got him in the 3 spot, and then you go to, I'll just rattle through them quickly. Obviously, I got 4. Zach Butters, I've gotten 4. Again, like you, I think he didn't the ugly first quarter. So somewhat ugly. He was one of those ones that got lost in the not just him. I just meant the game in general.
Oh right, yeah.
I think
absolutely.
I think he got lost in there a little bit. Like he picked up a few stats, but it was just like it wasn't the highlights. But then once we started exerting our dominance a bit, is when he was really highlighted. And obviously, SWEENEY moment was his dash of class,
Yeah.
and broke the game open, broke the midfield open, and it resulted in a goal, and it's that kind of stuff that he does. So, and then Rosie at 5, I thought I thought if he had a decent game, or like one of his standard games, which is like 25 to 30 disposals and impacted all around the field, that he probably would just get my 5, because I was like, first game as captain. I think there's not that I don't think he felt any pressure, but it still is just, there is
No.
the spotlight on that. And I think that he just handled it perfectly. And he's definitely was deserver of the flair of the man. That he was the player of the match for sure. But it was, like you said, it was there was a decent line of honourable mentions.
Absolutely.
Alir and Bergman were 2 that came up for me as well. And it was, like you said, it was just a touch of nepotism that I just wanted to get Dixon in there, because I don't know how often he's actually going to get in there, and those, but I thought he deserved to get at least a little bit of plaudits for his start the
sure.
season.
No arguments here.
Yeah, especially when I thought, like, if you, depending on who you listen to in media and Twitter or whatever it is, like, he might have didn't know if he had a leg to come into the season with, so he looks all right.
Yeah.
And
he impacted in the first quarter where where a lot of people, in reflection of different games of AFL, would say, the games had to be won in the first quarter. The scores are 0-0 at the start of the first bounce. So, although he tailed off a little bit, which is the yin to the yang, he did the business early, which was good.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see if he can. Like, obviously, I do just have that fear that he just doesn't have a body that can hold up for a full season. But depending on how we go, and how we manage him, and just sometimes it's just a stroke of luck too. When you've got a body that is injury prone, sometimes you can just have a run of luck and actually not get the knocks that you get.
And
so
if the rest of our forward line is functioning how we predict it to, then that might also take a bit more load off of him.
Yes, exactly.
In game.
Yeah, I'm sure he must have enjoyed seeing guys like Soldo get up there and do a little bit of that work as well. And
he won't be rucking anywhere near as much, even though I think he's an impactful ruckman.
Yeah, he'll
only be taking forward stoppages.
There was a goal that came off of a stoppage that he got a tap out, I think, as well. Like, there was a couple of moments I noticed watching.
I can't remember which one, but
I just remember seeing him in the goal highlight package. There was some ruck work in there, so I have to imagine it was in the down in the between, within 30 meters of goal, and I think he got it out, and a couple of handballs later it was through the big stick. So he has a role to play, as much as some people didn't want him to, or didn't believe he could. There is still a role to play for Charlie Dixon in the side, and I'm happy to see him playing all right. And it was a classic Charlie Dixon game, to be fair. something for the lovers, something for the haters. All right, so to wrap up, we'll weekly we'll do, when we do our review, we'll look forward to the next week. Obviously, we don't know what the sides are going to look like yet, though we have some idea. Obviously, for us, the only worry coming out of that game, unless there's a niggle that we haven't heard about, but I think there's the only one that we know that won't be playing, is obviously Jed McEntee's. Got a concussion and in protocol, so he's just not available for selection this week due to the concussion protocols. So that's about it for us. We're otherwise going to be going over to Richmond to play the Tigers, in good form, and everyone's fit and firing. Richmond have a few more injury worries. They had young Josh Kipkis, thoughts out to him with an ACL tear. It's just rough as a young player. And it's rough for any player, but it's really rough when you're a young player trying to establish your spot.
And he'd injured his hamstrings last year as well, which kept him out for a lot of the season. So even more deflating. For any young player who has that kind of turmoil early, you just hope that they can kind of work through it, beat it, and then flourish as they get a bit older.
Yeah. And there's plenty of examples of guys that in any sport that start off a little bit injury prone and figure it out as they go on. Robbie Gray is a shining example of a guy that used that time to kind of figure out how to do it. And even just thinking about NBA, Steph Curry was glass ankles for the first 5 years of career, and now look at where he is now. So but he's out for the year. You have to presume. I know ACLs,
Yeah,
they can do wonderful
100%.
things. But Tyler Young down back for them as well, had a concussion, so he's out with protocols. And then I don't know if the Prestia one was serious, but I saw that he was subbed off with a hamstring injury.
Yeah, his soft tissue injuries are constant.
Yeah. So the Tigers are going to be doing a bit of shuffling, I think, because they've been running.
Probably see Bolter having to play big down back.
Yeah, even though they're wanting to go with he's been up forward for him and they've been happy with it, but he might just have to necessity of where troops have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because
Yeah.
then you're relying on Grimes and Broad and Vlosten.
Yeah, and
who
maybe
their tallest are probably middle-sized defenders.
Yeah, and then guys that are in their reserves that I don't know who they've got to come in, but I didn't look that deeply into it. But they've got a few shuffles to make, and obviously won't be putting out the 22 they prefer to if they had everything go their way. And they've got guys coming back from obviously there's some big players like. I saw that Tom Lynch and Martin it was only the 21st game they've played together last weekend since the 2020 premiership was like. They've just, I guess, with Lynch had the long year out last year, and Martin's been in and out with injury, and they've just only played basically since 2020. Like, so we're talking 3 seasons in between that time. Only played barely a season together overall. So they've had, but both of those guys have come back in off injury. So it's going to be. I'm finding it hard to get a read on them so far. I look at they just lost to Carlton last week, which
bounced back fairly well. Yeah, last week.
And then
although Carlton had 5 more shots on goal, again, same old story with football.
Yeah,
margin could have been bigger for Carlton, but it wasn't. That's football, and Richmond did well to stay in the game. But yeah, being at the MCG against an away interstate opponent, yeah, they'll be pushing hard for their first win. They won't. We're going to go 0-3, and they do have that extra game up their sleeve, as a lot of people have been saying. We won't really know the effects of that extra game for some of those clubs, maybe for a little bit yet, but it's there. So we're taking over probably a lot healthier list. I'd probably say that Frankie Evans will probably just come straight into the forward line, and then we'll pick a sub from, maybe a Burgoyne, potentially a bit flexible. Someone who's flexible is typically probably my preferred sub option. So that's probably, and because Burgoyne had a great preseason as well, had a bit of a growth spurt, featured fairly prominently in the Fremantle Community Series game. So, but by all accounts, we should be heading into this game as favourites, and I know they'll want to get a win for at the MCG, but importantly too, Boakey's 350th, and Ken Hinkley's 250th game as coach.
There's gonna email start already.
Feast on that, how you will, listeners and Twitter proponents. But there's a couple of milestones. You can't avoid them. They're there. And I know that, we all hear they play for Ken, so they'll want to get up for it anyway.
Yeah.
They don't listen to people on the sidelines like us and others. But 350 for Boakey. Ken will get them fired up, and I would imagine they'll probably go pretty hard in the first quarter, and we just have to make sure that. And speaking about us, we'll probably go pretty hard, which will be interesting because Richmond will be going hard to try and set the ground running for their first win. They want to spoil the party, but we just have to make sure that we're not going hard enough to our detriment and kind of trying to overdo it, and just really stick to the plan, stay the course, and be the professional outfit that we know we are. And look, we are a better team. We're a better side than Richmond at the current stage, in my opinion. So look, it might not be a very comfortable win, but I foresee a win nonetheless.
Yeah, and it's looking like it's reasonable weather on Sunday in Melbourne. I saw 21 partly cloudy, but which could be
Could change.
mostly sunny as well.
It's Melbourne.
And again, it's Melbourne, so who knows? But it's looking like it'll be reasonable weather. Obviously, still warm by footy standards, but a lot better. It's a world apart from what they dealt with.
Oh,
Last
absolutely.
weekend.
Stark contrast
Yeah.
last Sunday.
So they'll enjoy that, and then like you said, they're far better. We're a better team and a more settled team at the moment too. Obviously, the Tigers are in rebuild mode anyway, so it's just a different
Yeah.
phase of their kind of where they are as a team. New coach in there. He's ripped off all the premiership banners apparently and all that stuff. Just they're in a different place, and obviously already dealing with a couple of shuffles that they don't want to have to make at this early point of the season. They're trying to get some of these young guys to settle into the team, and then Gibcus being out with a long-term injury is never, it's never a part of any team's plan. So, I mean, when a team's got players like Dustin Martin and Tom Lynch and them running around, it's never those
absolutely.
guys, they can
you
spark,
have to pay respect.
They can spark something, but then when you're coming up against a team that's playing with young guys like Rosie Butters and Horn Francis running through there, just looking at my 5 votes again and seeing those 3 names there, I'm just like, Dustin Martin, as much of a champion of the league he is, and an all-time great and a unique player, and as what he could do at his best, he just isn't there. And he's coming back off injury after last year, and he'll certainly have an impact. But I look at this game as
just try and minimize that, however it forms.
Yeah, this is one of those ones because I always feel a bit funny about going to the MCG because we do have just these weird games. Sometimes we go there and we play a team that we should beat, but it's sometimes in that 20 to 30 point range where we kind of get our ways ahead, and then they pull it back a little bit. It just gets a little bit interesting. One that for some reason came to mind was like the Hawthorn one when it was like when Burgoyne hit 400. I think was like one of those games that we just. It was a lot tighter, way tighter than it should have been. Was that at the G or was that at Mark? I can't remember. I just remember it just feels like
I can't remember. Yeah,
it feels like it could be one of those games though that is a lot tighter than it should be. But I ultimately we are going to. I'm confident that we'll win this game. But I think it could be one of those ones that some fans maybe might be a little bit frustrated at the end when we're only winning by 22 points or something random like that.
I don't see any bigger than a 4-goal win. 1 goal again, going by our metric that we kind of speaking about the last couple of weeks. A goal a quarter better in a game with a bit of emotion about it. They're going, obviously, like I said, going for their first win. I don't think it's going to be any more than 4-goal win. And if it is, I'll be pleasantly surprised and I'll absolutely take it.
Yeah, no, look, if we could go over and win by a similar margin to we just won by, then it's gonna be completely different probably as far as how people read it. But I think Richmond while they're a team going through a bit of a rebuild, they've played reasonably well. Like I know the Gold Coast win, the win for Gold Coast that was lost for Richmond. The history says you shouldn't be, but the Gold Coast are a new team now, and obviously the Damien Hardwick factor and all that. And I think they would have been disappointed to go down by almost 40 points up there, and but also it was a kind of just an emotional game for both ways, I guess. And then the Richmond Carlton result was Carlton should have won by a touch more, but also when you're battling with a team that, depending on who you talk to, Carlton are either going to win the premiership or barely finish in the 8. I don't know. It's Carlton.
And it's a neutral venue too.
Yeah, it's Carlton. So, I was kind of, when I saw that they'd kept it pretty tight against them, it made me just perk my ears a little bit more for this week. They're a team that, while they're going through rebuild, they're proud and they've still got some of those champions running through there, and they also I don't think they're going to be one of those teams that really truly bottoms out. Maybe in a couple of years. It just depends on how things go with some of these recruits.
We'll wait and see.
Yeah, but at this point of the season, like you said, they're trying to gun for their first win. New coach as well. Like they're not going to want to see him if they do like what he's doing there. They're not going to want to see him get the pressure built early, which is what and while it's unfair sometimes when it's a new coach and it's team rebuilding, that's what the media and fans. It's just the modern footy world. They talk about these things, so. it is a tricky one for us to go over and manage. We are a better team, and we will win by, I think, 3 to 4 goals. But it's one of those ones that I am expecting to go in with a little bit more of it'll just be a bit of a battle.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
I
No,
think
I'm
we'll
looking
have,
forward to it.
yeah, I think we'll have one of those runs where we bang on a few goals and have one of those real good runs that we have, and then we'll manage it out. Is what I'm hoping for. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. It's yeah, we did talk at the start of the year that we have a path forward to a really good start to the season, but it's gonna take us, yeah, taking some, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned out of last week against the Eagles as well, to you know tidy up the fumble rooskies a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what I do like about a game, that you win so comfortably and win so dominantly, in a way. And there's a lot of good things to look at, but there's a lot of stuff that we can work on. So it was a good. For me, that's a good perfect early season touch up to kind of look back on some tape and look at what you can do better to go over and beat Richmond. So,
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree. And yeah, they'll be eager to
yeah,
come home with the points.
yeah, exactly. And if we can, get through this week 2-0 and come back we're going to be back at home for a couple of weeks after this because of the gather round in there as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
they said the path forward to a good start to the year is there, but it's going to be negotiating.
Oh, yeah.
Negotiating this week is a big one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's on at 10 o'clock at night on Saturday, and I think we actually have a family show on that night. So I might be watching a bit of it on my phone when I can get the chance, and more properly taking in a replay later. But either way, I'm looking forward to it. It's always nice to go over and play a game with the G. And as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, we've got actually 3 chances to do it this year. So
yeah. So let's knock off the first one.
I was going to say, let's go 3-0 at the G this year. That'd be fucking nice.
That would be great. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, 3-0 for the regular season, and then another couple of wins after
around that. Yeah.
Alrighty, I reckon we've just about wrapped it up for this week.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. If you've made it this far.
Yeah, if you've made it this far, you're. I know there are a few that do. I think there was a couple of times I said, if you made it this far, let me know. And I remember getting a few messages. I was like, okay, that's good to know.
Awesome. Yeah.
Someone randomly said, like, heard my cat once and was just like, your cat sounds cute. I was like, okay, so people do actually listen intently.
Yeah.
So
tell us what you think. If you don't agree or you do agree, let us know.
Yeah, and when I do post the polls for the the awards and whatnot, if you have any nominations you want to put up yourself, just for the conversation, put them up there. It'd be fun to hear what other people think, what moments make them feel Sweeney. I don't think there'll be too much arguments about the goals, but yeah, any players that honorable mentions you want to throw in the comments about the players of the week and everything as well is we love the good conversation on Twitter. And
what's the handle for Twitter and Instagram?
It's _ the Creed on both of them. Twitter because I had to. Let me just double check it, because I do mess this up occasionally, because there was one I did have to kind of like mess around with it to make sure I got like the unique handle. But it is _ the Creed on Twitter and Instagram. It's I think it's my email. I had to add an 1870 on the email, which is just annoying, but it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, _ the Creed.
_ the Creed.
Yeah, and if you recognize the logo, I have the logo very clear on there. But yeah, _ the Creed on Twitter and Instagram, and just search the Creed on Facebook if you're a Facebook user, as the Instagram post gets shared there as well. So that's about it. Apart from the store, go to Linktree. There's a few things there, but I've got I'm looking at around the start of April that I'll pop a few other things up there that I might put up there for a pre-order period at a cheaper price. That's got a few designs I'm working on to celebrate our new captain. Just messing around with some ideas. So I'm kind of excited for them, but I'll talk about them more when I'm actually closer to having it locked in. But I'm pretty close at the moment.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's about it, I think.
No worries, Dave. Great to chat.
Cheers. Yeah, 4 points in the bag, and
4 points. Yeah, I took the words right out of my mouth.
And another 4 points coming this weekend. I'm pretty confident of. But yeah, as always, I think with week 1 providing a really good, fun, interesting discourse on the socials and everything like that, it's going to be I think every week's going to have its storylines that are going to be really fun to chat about. So
yeah, and we'll delve right into them.
Mm-hmm. All right.
That's the fun of it all.
Yeah. Until next time, it's Calm the Pair, and cheers, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Calm the pair. No worries. Catch you later, Dave. See you guys.
Cheers.